Oh, yeah!
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. We showed a live stream here on the channel yesterday afternoon with the Alberta NDP leadership race. Now, of course, if you're not from Alberta, I'll fill you in a little bit as to what's been going on. Failed NDP leader Rachel Notley, or the Sheriff of Nottingham, as I always called her, had stepped down quite some time ago from the NDP party. Now, the time came for other candidates to rise up and say which one of them was going to take over the Orange Woke Party of Alberta. Well, we've seen some candidates like Sarah Hoffman stand forward, and, well, of no surprise, sellout and failed woke mayor Naheed Nenshi threw his hat into the ring. What is devastating here is that during that live stream, I was talking a little bit about how Alberta is in trouble, and this is concerning moving forward into our next provincial election for people like Danielle Smith. Now, why would I say that? Well, Naheed Nenshi has been pushing back against Danielle Smith's controversial bill to ban kids under the age of 18 from taking gender-altering drugs or procedures of medical procedures. She believes that adults should be the ones choosing what is best for them, and I tend to agree. If you're too young to sign up for the military, then you're certainly too young to decide what to expel from your body or what damage to do to your body that could either be temporary or permanent in most cases. Now, where I have my concerns, I'm going to show you guys right here. And, well, I just want, it's no fear mongering because there is a silver lining to this. And I do want to get into that. There is a silver lining. But let's take a minute to look at what is going on and why I think things could be somewhat risky moving into the next provincial election here in Alberta. Now, when we take a look here, I'm going to shift over to this reading from the last provincial election. Danielle Smith taking 49 seats over Rachel Notley's 38 of the NDP. Now, as we scroll down, again, Danielle getting 52% of the total vote with Rachel Notley's 44%. If we scroll down to the map, what we have to realize is that it takes only 42 seats, I believe, to become premier, to take the premier seat. 44 seats, sorry, needed for a majority. So as we go 44 seats, when you look at the 38 to 49, I mean, essentially, Rachel Notley only needed 6 more seats to form a majority government over Danielle Smith. Now, when we look at the map of Alberta, we're going to clear that notification. As I zoom out, you can see, well, it's mostly blue. And we talked about this in yesterday's live stream. The province of Alberta, mostly blue, and very little to worry about on a grand scale. But this is where elections play a very large part in where federally, provincially, municipally, we head into reform. Because while most of the province is blue, well, the rural or urban cities are the ones that count for the votes in terms of per capita. So you can see in Edmonton here, of course, it's all orange because, again, Edmonton's very different when it comes to their voting. I'm not saying we don't have conservative voters in Edmonton, that they just don't exist. But of course, it's more union heavy. There's government workers in that town that back unions, that back certain programs and health services and teachers unions and whatnot to promote the NDP. So Edmonton is typically an orange city. Now we see here the Banff-Kananaskis riding won by 199 votes for the NDP. But what's more concerning is that when we get into Calgary, because Calgary is really Lethbridge, obviously Tabor, all those areas having issues. But some of these areas in Calgary, over here, Calgary-Pagan, Calgary, well, Fish Creek was a bit of a landslide victory. Calgary-Lougheed, Calgary West, even here, Calgary-Bow. The Conservative delegate for that area, Dimitri, won by only 385 votes. When we click up here, the UCP candidate in this major riding only won by 149 votes. Now, there are some bigger ones here like Calgary-Pagan, where, again, 2,700 votes. Here's another one, Calgary East, 701 votes. 518 votes in Calgary Cross. Again, Southeast Calgary, more telling. 4,600 vote difference, 2,800 vote difference in Hayes, 3,300 in Calgary Shaw, Fish Creek 2,400. So the southwest and southeast corners of the city, 2,700, are usually okay, but some of these major ridings. I mean, the NDP only won Calgary Glenmore by 38 votes. Calgary Acadia was by 7 votes. This was Tyler Shandro, the minister. I can't remember if he was the health minister or what it was he did, but he did a lot of bad calls during the pandemic. A lot of people weren't happy with Tyler Shandro. Of course, his riding went by 7 votes. Now, the reason I bring that up is Calgary is essentially going to be the battleground. When you look at this map, Edmonton's already got it. Banff Kananaskis, again, 199 votes. So that's up for grabs. But when you look at Calgary, there's a vast majority of Calgary that's turning orange. The north end of town, to be specific. This NDP won by 2,300 votes. We're looking at 1,898 votes in this riding, 2,800 votes in this riding. Again, there's some thin margins over here in the northwest of Calgary. Varsity won by 4,000 votes. I mean, there's a very strong possibility there's a lot of Calgarians that still back Naheed Nenshi. And I know we've spent a lot of time talking about this map, but it's important because Naheed Nenshi, of course, was placed as the leader of the NDP as of yesterday. And while I portrayed it as doom and gloom, I said specifically that Calgary's in trouble, that Alberta is essentially in trouble. This is the time to get out and make your votes heard. Now, the reason for that is the same reason Naheed Nenshi, even though he did a horrible job and completely decimated Calgary with his woke politics and saying that people protesting the pandemic lockdowns were white nationalists who didn't deserve to eat, well, he was able to keep his job. And part of that, in part, was the Muslim vote. Now, that's not a racial standpoint or a religious standpoint. When you look at the per capita ratings in Calgary when it comes to their municipal elections, the Muslim community up in Northeast Calgary holds the majority of the per capita vote in Calgary, meaning that when Naheed Nenshi ran in Calgary, usually we would see most times in his elections, aside from his very first installment as mayor, that they would be able to call the election long before they would even tabulate votes in the south end of Calgary, simply because it was an overwhelming support for Naheed Nenshi. Why do I bring that up? Well, during his NDP leadership race, we saw an overwhelming amount of NDP memberships in Alberta spike to the tune of 84,000, I believe. 84,000 memberships. I know people like Marty up north went and got memberships, and I know a lot of people discussed getting memberships purely to vote to make sure that this clown didn't get in to run the NDP party. Now, what we saw yesterday was roughly 90% of that 80,000 vote went to Naheed Nenshi to the tune of just over 70,000 votes, I believe. Unbelievable. This turnout was in record numbers. That's what scares me about Alberta, is if that many people are going to buy memberships simply to make sure that this man represents the party, we're in trouble. Why are we in trouble? Well, let's listen to his hateful judging speech. Now, this guy's always got verbal diarrhea. I'm not going to play too much, but it's going to paint a picture for you as to what Alberta could see if this clown gets in power.
So 5 months ago, I was living a really good life. At home. But I, like all of you, was increasingly troubled by the direction of our government, by the direction of our province, by the direction of our home. The stories I was hearing from our premier and our government, the place they were describing, didn't feel like our home. They were describing an Alberta that I didn't recognize. They were describing an Alberta that is so very, very small. And in Alberta, we are many things, but we are not small. They were describing an Alberta where everyone is against us. An Alberta where we need to fight outsiders all the time. An Alberta where we should be scared of change. instead of embracing and leading the future. That is not Alberta. Alberta is not small. Alberta is not small-minded. Because as we all know, it is impossible to think small under a sky that big. But Danielle Smith and the UCP want us to be small. They want us to be small because they think small. They see Alberta as a fortress to be defended. But what Alberta has always been is a wide open door with a welcome mat, inviting the best people and the best ideas from every corner of this broken earth to live a great Alberta life right here. You know, Danielle Smith recently said, in her way as she is, she gets carried away sometimes, and she claimed to be the most, I have to get this quote right, the most freedom-loving politician in Canada. But friends, she hasn't done a blessed thing to protect anybody's freedoms. In fact, what she does is she systematically takes them away. Taking away the freedom for doctors, parents, and kids to choose the best medical treatment for themselves. Taking away the freedom of landowners to decide what to build on their lands. Taking away the freedom of citizens to choose local representatives to reflect local views. Taking away the freedom of regulators to do their jobs without political interference and appointing cronies and lobbyists. She's taking away the freedom to disagree with the Premier on anything. And she's taking away the freedom for teachers and doctors and nurses to do their jobs without fear, to do their jobs with hope, and to do their jobs with adequate funding.
So first off, we're going to chime in. I'm just going to stop it right there because I don't want to listen to the blabbering of this purple clown any longer. Essentially what he's talking about here and what is important to take away from this is that he's basically going to undo everything that Danielle Smith has done for Alberta. He essentially will introduce a provincial tax. We'll definitely see PST. Whether or not we would see HST is to be yet seen if he were to take power. Of course, he talks about doctors not working in fear. Well, what about the doctors who made Albertans live in fear during lockdowns, which again, Danielle Smith stepped in, firing Dr. Dina Hinshaw, basically about pacing on everything that happened with Alberta. Now, Nenshi, of course, refers to Alberta's big sky, and of course, the BS province now, as BS City works for Calgary, the BS province of Alberta. But we're starting to see a turnaround now where he wants to change gender ideology, because we all know where Naheed Nenshi stands in terms of that. He wants to talk about green projects, essentially everything woke the federal government has talked about before. Now, all that being said as to why this is critical or why this is detrimental to Alberta, a guy like this getting in charge of Alberta, we all know what happened under Rachel Notley. We all know that Alberta would essentially be doomed if Naheed Nenshi were to somehow defeat Danielle Smith in the next provincial election. Now, again, the turnout and the support that we've seen from Naheed Nenshi tends to worry me a little bit. When you take in factor, statistically, they said last year that over 60% of people who moved from the province of British Columbia moved to the city of Calgary. It's very worrisome based on British Columbia's voting habits to traditionally support NDP or more left-leaning governments that, well, this is what's headed for Alberta. Now, again, Naheed Nenshi would essentially introduce taxes. He would spend, and turn this into a utopian nightmare for anybody that does not believe in the message or the checked boxes. If you think Justin Trudeau has done a fantastic job of destroying the country, well, you've seen nothing yet when it comes to Naheed Nenshi being in charge of Alberta. Why this is a big deal, though, and why I think there's a bit of a silver lining to this. When we looked at those razor-thin margins, there were some on the NDP side as well. Danielle Smith, of course, could gain some ground when it comes to convincing the general public or getting the general public motivated to get out and vote in the next election. There's an outpouring online since his election. And again, while I said this was doomsday, this was bad on the live stream, let's look at it a glass half full. Naheed Nenshi has made a statement that he intends to step back from the NDP provincial or the federal platform. He wants to break away from the NDP party and rebrand what he's doing with the NDP, of course, in his image, because he's a bit of a narcissist, just like Justin Trudeau. And while that happens, there was an outpouring of people on Twitter yesterday saying, hey, guess what? The NDP just handed Danielle Smith the next election. Danielle is going to absolutely obliterate Naheed Nenshi when it comes to his woke politics. The guy has issues, much like people like Donald Trump, keeping his mouth shut, saying the wrong things at the right time. And well, when I started thinking about it, and when I started to, take the glass half full approach, I headed over to Reddit. You can see out here, I'm supporting Nenshi, but this is a terrible idea to rebrand the party, especially coming as a clear outsider candidate. You will need some of the existing membership, and this is the surefire way to lose them. Hoping this takes up as little oxygen as possible. We should focus on making a federal party electable, not killing the Alberta NDP. Another person, wow, he's been in the running for like a day and he's already completely torpedoed his reputation in my mind. To all the NDPers who thought we needed moderate candidates to appeal to a wider base, how does it feel to instead destroy the Alberta wing of the party and make a new Liberal Party to replace the old one? Again, Naheed Nenshi was in the rumblings as he was on his way out as Calgary mayor that he was perhaps going to take up a job with Justin Trudeau and the Liberals federally. Down here, I think tying us to people whose values we might not entirely share, that we don't have control over, costs more than it benefits. Again, a quote from Naheed Nenshi. This person said, this is the most telling for me. For Notley, the disagreement with the federal NDP was not over values. Whether it was workers' rights, expanding social services, etc., the values were the same. She was simply standing up for Alberta's interests within the Federation. This was a mutual understanding of that. The admission by Nenshi that the disagreement is actually about core values is extremely concerning to me. And this goes on and on. Again, the video is getting lengthy, so I'm not going to go too much into it, but this is a silver lining. We've seen that when other when other NDP members joined Naheed Nenshi on stage yesterday, of course, Sarah Hoffman looked like she couldn't stomach being up there, while woke clowns like Janice Irwin, of course, up there flaunting her fake smiles for the crowd. There's going to be a lot of divide within the party itself, not to mention, by what we can see on Reddit, its voters. And that may in turn lead more people voting towards a conservative government to ensure their NDP brand is not destroyed by Naheed Nenshi. So, hey guys, silver lining, maybe things aren't really doom and gloom. Maybe things are looking better on the horizon for Alberta moving forward. But what I'm most interested in is give me your opinions. Let me know what you guys think down below. Is this party going to rot itself from the inside out? Is this the beginning of the end for the NDP? Is it the beginning of the end for possibly Danielle Smith? Do you believe, based on those votes again, that she's in any kind of danger moving into the next provincial election? I, for one, have said I'm standing behind Danielle Smith. She's always going to get my vote for as long as she wants to tenure as Premier of Alberta, despite the fact we have other videos coming this week about some questionable choices she's made. I still believe in my heart of hearts that she does the best job out of any possible candidate for this province and has done fantastic things moving forward. Let me know your thoughts down below. If it's your first time here, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Don't forget to check that subscribe button and also click your bell for notifications. Join us live here on the channel each and every Friday night for Friday Night Fringe, our once-a-week live streaming show where we go over everything that's happened this week in politics, everything coming up in the week ahead, and some back and forth within our community. Much like the comment section, I'm always looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say outside of making these videos live. I look forward to it each and every week, and I look forward to seeing each and every one of you there. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend and enjoyed this video. I'll catch you on the next one.